The government is now treating your neighbors who oppose data centers as potential terrorists. And the backlash is going national. With Congress, state capitals, and big tech all caught in the crossfire. American law enforcement has quietly been treating your neighbors who oppose AI data centers as potential violent extremists. Documents obtained by The Intercept and Wired reveal that the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and regional fusion centers are actively monitoring data center opposition meetings, social media posts, and peaceful protests, classifying them alongside domestic extremist activity. A Philadelphia fusion center warned that domestic violent extremists may target AI data centers, listing indicators that include boycotts, online criticism, and attending public hearings. The report swept in completely lawful First Amendment activity. Philadelphia police have since admitted tracking critics of AI. Legal experts say these intelligence bulletins follow a long and troubling tradition of treating political dissent as a security threat for the tens of thousands of Americans now organized against data center development in their communities. That label is not just alarming. It is a warning shot. That opposition is now making its way into the halls of Congress. On June 25, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced the Artificial Intelligence Data Center Moratorium Act, the first federal legislation ever to call for a nationwide halt on AI data center construction. The bill would freeze permits for any facility drawing 20 megawatts or more, a threshold that covers virtually all hyperscale AI infrastructure, until, as the bill states, strong national safeguards are in place. 9 House members signed on as co-sponsors, including Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Jim McGovern of Massachusetts. The bill is unlikely to pass in a Republican-controlled Congress, but its introduction signals that data center opposition has reached a scale that Washington can no longer ignore. In just over a year, community groups have collectively blocked or delayed more than $64 billion in planned data center investment across the country. And the reason this legislation keeps gaining momentum comes down to one thing. States have had enough. New York's legislature passed the Responsible Data Center Development Act in early June. A 1-year moratorium that would freeze all Department of Environmental Conservation permits for new facilities drawing 20 megawatts or more. It would be the first law of its kind in any state in the nation. Now the bill sits on Governor Kathy Hochul's desk, where it faces one of the most intense lobbying battles in Albany this session. Tech giants are pouring millions into a campaign to kill the bill. Environmental and community groups say Hochul must act. The governor herself has said, quote, "We've got some time before committing to a position. Dozens of proposed data centers worth billions of dollars, and the jobs and tax revenues they represent, sit frozen in legal uncertainty while New York waits for her answer." And the reason this legislation keeps gaining momentum comes down to one thing. Money. Specifically, whose money is paying for it? In just the first 3 months of 2026, utility companies filed $9.4 billion in rate increase requests with state regulators. That follows a record-breaking $31 billion in requests filed across all of 2025. More than double the $15 billion sought in all of 2024. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas estimates wholesale power prices could rise as much as 50% over the next 5 years as data center demand doubles. PJM interconnection, covering 13 states and 65 million Americans, reports that data center-driven demand has already pushed consumer bills up by $13.8 billion. And in neighborhoods located immediately next to data centers, electric bills have climbed as much as 267%, according to Bloomberg. Florida has blocked utilities from passing these costs to residents. Other states are watching, but for millions of Americans, the bill is already here. The pressure on the grid is only half the story. Water tells the other half. AI data centers are now consuming 550 million gallons of water every single day across the United States. In 2025 alone, total consumption reached 264 billion gallons, the equivalent annual water use of 1.8 million Americans. And they're growing fastest in the driest places. 2/3 of all data centers built or in development since 2022 sit in water-stressed regions. Southern Arizona, the Colorado River Basin, and Texas. More than 63% of the United States is currently under some form of drought. A single large data center can draw 5 million gallons per day, equivalent to a city of 50,000 people. By 2028, AI-related data centers could require 32 billion gallons annually, enough to supply 360,000 households' full indoor water needs. Virginia passed emergency restrictions this June requiring data centers to follow the same water rules as every household and small business in the state. State legislators are taking notice of those numbers. But so is Wall Street. Meta Platforms alone announced $79 billion in new data center leasing commitments this quarter, a 76% increase, bringing its total outstanding commitment to $182.9 billion. Bloomberg's analysis shows that when you add the lease pledges from Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, the total outstanding commitment among the largest cloud computing companies now exceeds $850 billion. And that's just leased space. On capital expenditures, the four hyperscalers plan to spend $725 billion in 2026 alone, a 77% jump from $410 billion in 2025. Amazon is projecting $200 billion. Microsoft approaching $190 billion. These are numbers unlike anything in corporate history. And they represent infrastructure that must be built somewhere. In someone's community. On someone's power grid. Drawing from someone's water supply. And the financial commitment behind that construction is staggering. Even at the individual deal level. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is acquiring clean energy infrastructure firm Intersect Power for $4.75 billion in cash, plus the assumption of debt. The deal gives Google direct control over several gigawatts of energy and data center projects, currently in development or under construction. It is a landmark moment. A technology company buying its way into the power sector, not to own a product, but to guarantee its own electricity supply. Google already held a minority stake in Intersect, having worked with the company as a development partner for years. The acquisition was first announced in late 2025 and cleared in the first half of 2026. The message it sends to the energy industry is unmistakable. The hyperscalers no longer trust the grid to keep pace with their ambitions, and they are moving to control their power from source to server. Yet despite that investment pressure, the resistance isn't slowing down. It's being measured in billions of dollars. Data Center Watch reports that more than $64 billion in planned U.S. data center investment has been blocked or delayed through community opposition in just over a year. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, Local backlash delayed or stopped at least 75 projects with a combined value of $130 billion. And a Reuters Ipsos survey released this June found 57% of Americans would oppose a data center in their community, with just 14% comfortable living near one. The opposition has crossed every political and geographic line. Working-class neighborhoods are resisting at 5 times the rate of wealthy ones. Counties in Alabama, Oklahoma, Indiana, and North Carolina voted to impose moratoriums in the same 48-hour window. The industry that once built in silence is now building against the loudest wave of organized opposition in its history. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps us cover more of these stories.